Naruto's Chunin Exams arc is one of the most iconic and prolific arcs in all of anime. So naturally, a lot of people, including myself, have taken characters from other anime and put them in the Chunin Exams to see how exactly they would fare in comparison to the main cast of Naruto. And that is what we are going to be doing in this video. We'll be taking two of the most popular characters from one of the most popular animes in the entire world, with Gon and Killua from Hunter x Hunter. We'll be putting them in Naruto and Sasuke's position in the Chunin Exams to see how they would do, if they're better than Naruto and Sasuke in this scenario, if they're worse, and what other outcomes may come from this. In other words, today we will be exploring and breaking down Gon and Killua versus the Chunin Exams. So, how do Gon and Killua do in Naruto's Chunin Exams? That is the question we'll be answering. But before we answer that, I think there are a few important things for us to go over. Number one, Gon and Killua will be getting all of their feats. They'll be in their standard forms, but all of their feats leading up to the end of the anime. So it's not going to be a situation where they start in their most powerful forms or where they're severely weakened or nerfed like they have been throughout the series. So just all feats from the main anime canon. Secondly, Nen and Chakra are going to be the same thing. We're doing power equalization. So, Nen and Chakra will interact with one another as if they are both the same substance. Gon and Killua will have chakra networks, things like that. So, just to, preface that. And finally, we will be dropping Gon and Killua into the place of Naruto and Sasuke during the series. That means they will be on Team 7 with Sakura, but let's be honest, she doesn't make much of a difference at all during the Chunin Exams, so it's really just gonna be a two-man squad, but that is the position that they are in. However, I will not be covering this by myself. No, today I have a very special guest. One of my good buddies, really needs no introduction. My buddy Satori is here with me. And to be completely honest with you guys, we actually recorded this forever ago, and all of his subscribers have just been begging for more One Punch Man content, so he hasn't had a chance to upload it to his channel, so instead we've moved it to mine. That being said, due to that, we don't have an introduction for Satori, but Satori doesn't need any introduction. You guys know who he is. So, without any further ado, let's jump into the first round of the Chunin Exams.
So the first hurdle that Gon and Killua will have to face in the Chunin Exams is the written test. So why don't you start us off? What do they do here?
I think it's pretty straightforward. I don't think that we really need to spend too much time on it because, let's be honest, Killua is a genius. In terms of general knowledge, I would say he's probably smarter than any of Team 7. And Sakura is the only one who was able to actually, answer the questions and wasn't having issues with it. Even Sasuke was struggling with it, but I think Killua's general knowledge and his display of intelligence throughout the entire series of Hunter x Hunter just kind of proves that he's in a different tier of intellect. And Gon, he's a dummy, but it's okay because he's a resilient dummy like Naruto. So he's gonna put his name at the top.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
And maybe he's gonna put down some answers that are just totally wrong, but he's not gonna give up. So at the end of the day, because the goal of the exam is to not give up, I think the fact that Gon is so determined, and I don't think he would cheat. I feel like Gon would be like Naruto, oh god, I'm not gonna fail Killua, I can't do that, but he's ultimately not gonna give up, and so they're gonna pass it with flying colors, I think. Do you think anything else to add there, or I think it's pretty straightforward, to be honest?
Yeah, I think what you said is accurate, and I would also add that they should have an ability called N, which is basically just them creating a field of aura around themselves, and within that field they can just sense any and all movements. So they could easily just create an N field and then just copy answers from people that are just writing down next to them. So even cheating isn't really a problem, but I don't even think they really need to cheat. So moving on to the second stage, to the Forest of Death, one more thing that I should have mentioned at the start is just the general advantages that Gon and Killua will have going into this. So firstly, they specifically learn to sleep with basically half of their brain active. They can sleep while holding rocks over their heads. So they're not getting caught off guard, even while resting. That's just not happening in this case. Then Gon has extremely sensitive hearing and an extremely sensitive nose as well. He can smell things very well. So that's another thing that they have going for them. And then another thing is that they have a technique called Gyo, which they can basically... What it does is they focus their aura into their eyes, which allows them to see aura around them. So in this case, it would allow them to see chakra, because we're equalizing the power systems. So they could legit just see chakra around them. They could see where people are. It's sort of like a Sharingan at that point. So those are just the general advantages that they have. So they're definitely not getting caught off guard by anyone.
Yeah, I mean, the Gyo kind of gives them a blend of the Sharingan and Byakugan in a way, because, like, they can still see, you know, signatures through obstructions to some degree. So, like you said, they'd be able to kind of just, like, look around and see where people are hiding and things like that. But instead of, like, seeing, like, the full picture of the person, they just see, like, essentially the aura, right? So, yeah, I mean, that's a huge advantage in the Forest of Death, where people are going to be, you know, hiding, trying to sneak attack them, all that good stuff. And then plus just the fact that they both have highly trained senses that enable them to, like, literally sniff out opponents, you know, or hear opponents. And they're, in terms of just, like, their overall ability to navigate the Forest of Death, I think they're going to be in a completely different league than anybody else that's in there. So before we go any further, I think it's worthwhile going into the scaling very briefly. We want to keep this short because Satsuri and I know that this is going to be a long video. So what we decided to do is we're going to just give you guys the generally accepted ranges in the power scaling community for these characters. And that way you guys can get kind of a general picture for where they're going to scale to one another. You can find this scaling on any scaling website, whether it be Versus Battle Wiki or, you know, something else. So feel free to check out those calcs yourselves. But basically for Gon and Killua, they have a floor in terms of their speed at about Mach 45, and then they have a ceiling without any power-ups, of course, at about Mach 300. So this is a wide range. You can get a good understanding of why there's a wide range if you dig into these yourselves, but just know that that's sort of the range. So if you want to go low-end interpretation, it's Mach 45. You want to go high-end interpretation, about Mach 300. Now, whenever Gon and Killua power up, so Killua into Godspeed and Gon into his transformation, Godspeed is stated to be lightning speed, so it's at least Mach 587, and I would assume the same thing for Gon's transformation, but we don't get any, like, really crazy speed calcs for him. We just know that they're pretty much relative throughout the series, so it's safe to assume he's right around that same level. For the Naruto characters, they have a floor of about Mach 30 and a ceiling of about Mach 250, so they are going to generally be a little bit slower, but that's not taking into consideration perception amps and things like that. It is, however, taking into consideration gate amps and a potential Chidori amp and things like that. So their combat speed is going to be a little bit lower than Gon and Killua's, but basically they're going to be in the same tier unless Gon and Killua go into their final forms, and even then they're not a full blitz tier above them. Now whenever it comes to attack potency and durability, the Naruto characters do have a distinct edge, with basically the high tiers scaling consistently to about large town level, whereas Gon and Killua don't really scale any higher than, like, small town level. So in terms of speed, Gon and Killua have a pretty solid advantage, but not a full blitz tier advantage. And then in terms of attack potency and defense, Naruto characters do have a distinct advantage, but it's not so overwhelming that Gon and Killua won't be able to harm them or anything like that. So with that out of the way, let's continue on so we can go into this next phase.
And then one last advantage is they have a technique called Zetsu, which allows them to pretty much completely erase their presence. So they just shut down their aura flow, and they just legit just become invisible to anything that isn't just the human eye. They can't be heard, they can't be spotted with, like, sensory abilities or anything, so that's just even more broken. Like, they just hide in a bush and sneak attack someone. Like, they're definitely acquiring the scrolls real quick. But then here's where the trouble starts, because there's a pretty significant cliff here. We go from the imposters to Orochimaru.
Yeah.
So, in this scenario, Orochimaru is gonna be going after Killua, because, you know, obviously Gon is Naruto and Sasuke is Killua, you know, that's just pretty a no-brainer there. So, you know, Orochimaru, he's not gonna want Killua because he has a Kekigenkai or whatever, but the Zoldycks in general have just very gifted biology and genetics. They have very just powerful training from a very young age, so just Killua as a 12-year-old can withstand like 10 different kinds of torture and whatnot. So he's just gonna want him for his genetics and stuff. So what do you think happens here?
You know, I think they do better than what they did than what like Naruto and Sasuke did in the original storyline. But at the end of the day, like we can scale, Gon and Killua to the absolute highest point of a reasonable scaling, and they're still not in Orochimaru's tier. Like Orochimaru is on a completely different level, so I do think they would give him some more issues. I think in particular, Gon is going to outperform Naruto in terms of everything that he was able to do. I mean, like Naruto was impressive in that, being able to stop the snake and all that stuff, but ultimately just like kind of got bodied. And then Sasuke, he did pretty well, but I think Killua's superior speed, his overall like the we really get to see how raw Team 7 is in the Chunin exams, because like yes, they've been on what was upgraded to like an S class mission, right? But or an A class mission or whatever it was in the Land of Waves, but they're still like super green. Like they're not comfortable with like killing people. They're not comfortable with, these high stress environments yet. We see Sasuke get totally fear hacked by Orochimaru. That's not happening to Killua. Like it's just not. Like he'll be able to sense how powerful Orochimaru is, and like maybe he'd be like, oh man, like this guy's a serious issue. But he would immediately go into Godspeed and then either retreat or like try to take him on and like distract him enough to where they can retreat. But if he does engage him, I think the more interesting thing that we get from this is he probably still ends up with the curse mark like Sasuke did. Like, what do you think about that? How do you think their interaction goes? Do you think he dips immediately, or do you think that he engages Orochimaru and then ends up with that curse mark?
Yeah, I think what you said is very accurate. They are much, much, much more used to killing and whatnot than Naruto and Sasuke were at this point. Gon literally took a sentient being and just crushed him to death. Killua is an assassin. He killed people when he was 6 years old.
Yeah.
And the two of these guys encounter the Royal Guards in Hunter x Hunter. And those Royal Guards are so scary. Like, their raw aura is so terrifying that it can force an experienced, grown man hunter, specifically handpicked, to handle this, like, alien ant invasion and whatnot. They can just force that man to age 50 years and go bald from stress just from sensing them once. And Gon and Killua just run straight at them. Like, they're not getting fear-hacked by Orochimaru at all. So, I think the sensible thing is Killua is going to go Godspeed and retreat, because he's brave, but he's not stupid, He's not just gonna look at this guy who he clearly would sense that he's way stronger than them and just go, yeah, we should take him on. But I feel like Godspeed eventually does just run out, and Orochimaru is not gonna let them go. He's just gonna chase them throughout the forest. And Orochimaru should be capable of keeping up with Godspeed, because Godspeed is lightning speed, and we know Orochimaru is faster than lightning, so he just stops suppressing himself and then just keeps up with them, and just eventually Godspeed either runs out or Killua sees that it's not working and then just drops it and prepares for battle. So, in that case, I would definitely see them performing way better than Naruto and Sasuke, because Killua has those lightning bolts that can just stun people. So what I would imagine, the fight is gonna just be going. Gon and Killua are gonna be tag teaming Orochimaru hand to hand. Orochimaru is gonna be handling them like kids. And then what I see happening is Killua eventually stuns him with a lightning bolt, which allows Gon to get a Jijanken on Orochimaru, and since Orochimaru will be suppressed, I imagine that it would do some decent damage. But then afterwards, Orochimaru is just gonna regenerate and then just place a curse mark on Killua at that point, because he's gonna be like, okay, you kids are actually kinda... you're kinda threatening when I'm using 1% of my power. Let me just use 10% and then just deal with you real quick. So, I think this ends with Killua being unconscious, like Sasuke was.
Well, and I think, honestly, I was gonna say, if he gets that curse mark, I do think he survives it. I know, like, the survivability rate is super low.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But like he's super resilient. He's been put through like training, like you said, to be able to resist torture and all of those things. So like I think he comes out of it. He honestly might come out of it earlier than Sasuke did too, because Sasuke isn't used to that type of agony. I mean, the amount of pain that you get put through with that curse mark on you is immense. And so because of that, like, Sasuke kind of folded like an omelet. You know, he's still super green at this point again, whereas like Killua was gonna be like, yo, this is another Tuesday, bro. Now I do think he probably like passes out from the just rush of power that comes into him, but you can make an argument that Killua comes to sooner, and that'll be important here in just a little bit. But yeah, I do think they come out of this fight basically the same way that Naruto and Sasuke did, except I see Gon coming out of this fight better than Naruto did, because Orochimaru specifically used that 5-point, tetragram seal or whatever on top of the 8-point seal, and then like knocked him out. He's not going to have a reason to do that because Gon doesn't have a tailed beast inside of him. He would just like thrash him and throw him off to the side, but I think Gon, again, is a little bit more resilient than Naruto is at this point as well. So I think Gon recovers quicker. So instead of having, Sakura, the most useless character in the series at this point, taking care of these two juggernauts, I think Gon would at least still somewhat be capable of doing something. So whenever they interact with the next people that they interact with, it'll go a little bit differently than it did in the original timeline.
Yeah, for sure. So moving on to those people, next up is the Sound Ninjas attacking them. So their mission, just like in the original, is going to be to kill Killua. And if Killua has woken up by now, which, like Sage said, it's very likely that he would, then it's just a complete thrashing. They just get bodied by Gon and Killua working together for sure. Maybe they could catch Gon with the sound jutsus and immobilize him, but then Killua is just gonna be wary of that, and then eventually Rock Lee arrives to help as well, so it's not looking good for the Sound Ninjas. So what do you think about this one?
Yeah, well, and like I said too, I think Killua probably again wakes up earlier, and even if he doesn't, and even if Gon gets folded, let's say they hit him with the the sound technique that like disrupts his equilibrium and he goes down, and then Lee shows up and the same thing happens to him. Neji was waiting on one of the big forest trees, just like looking down on everything, and he was ready to hop in and like take them down until Sasuke woke up and took them down. And like Dosu specifically notes that like Neji's a problem. So I think even if Killua doesn't wake up and just like clean shop, which I think is probably what happens. I think he wakes up, he's like, you dare touch my Gon? And then just like folds him, bro. Like folds him, and like
imagine Killua.
Dude, yeah, Killua with the curse mark, bro. With a curse mark, because like he's already got like a dark sort of persona, and he kind of suppresses it whenever he's around Gon, because like Gon is kind of like the good guy, But at the end of the day, Killua is an assassin, and if you go after Gon, his one and only true homie, like, and he's got sort of like the darkness from Orochimaru's chakra in his system now that he has the curse mark. Oh, dude, he's like, Dosu's gone. Like, Dosu's dead. He doesn't even get to Gaara. Bro, he's just gone, bro.
Killua legit just saw like someone trying to like going into fighting, right? And then he's just shows up at the man's dorm behind him in the mirror, and he's just like holding a pen to the back of his head, and he's like, "You touch Gon again, I'm stabbing you.
Yeah.
Get out of my sight." So imagine if these guys actually like attack Gon. It would just be like Ramit, if you remember him from Hunter x Hunter, where Killua just straight up blitzed him and ripped his head off. Like, that's what's gonna happen to Dosu. And then the other two are gonna look at this, and before they can even really react to it, they're gonna get blitzed and one-shot as well. Like, it's disgusting.
Yeah, and honestly, low-key, this will play a role later on in this video, but like with Neji and like potentially Lee and like the rest of like Team 10, all of them like looking down and seeing what's kind of going on here. If they see Killua rip Dosu's head off and then like impale the other two dudes, dude, like they're gonna be thinking, I have to fight this guy in the final round, like this is gonna carry over to later on. But yeah, I don't think Killua would be playing games. I think he comes out and just like clean shop. And if he does stay passed out longer than Sasuke did, or if you just like assume that the fight progresses more quickly because Gon's there, and Neji shows up and clean shop, then like the result is still the same. They come out of this, pretty much unscathed, maybe a little bit tired for Gon, but like Killua, I think, would take to the curse mark better than Sasuke did overall. So I think he wakes up feeling rejuvenated and like ready to go.
Yeah, for sure, because Killua, like, legit, he's so used to torture that he legit turns one of his torture methods into a Nen ability. Like, that's how used he is to this thing. He's been shocked from a young age, so he just legit turns that into his Nen ability, so... I feel like he would take to the curse mark like a fish to water, honestly. He wouldn't have control over it, but it definitely wouldn't be hindering him nearly as much as it was hindering Sasuke. So moving on, the next thing that would happen is they would encounter Kabuto. And you actually had quite a bit to say about this, so what do you think about Kabuto and Killua interacting?
Yeah, so we see from the get-go that Sasuke is a little suspicious of Kabuto. I don't think Killua would be a little suspicious. I think Killua would know. I think he'd be like, there is something about this dude. We cannot trust him. Like, get out of my face. Like, I don't think that Killua would be rocking with Kabuto at all. And, like, Gon, you know, he's a little bit less gullible than, like, Naruto was at this point in time. But I do think he's, like, generally kind of a trusting person. And so he may still, like, kind of fall for the charade that Kabuto's putting on. But I think we could legitimately see a scenario. Now, don't get me wrong here before I say this. Do not get me wrong. Killua does not scale to Kabuto, okay? All right, let's get that out of the way.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, Killua was an assassin who can completely conceal his presence and sneak up on Kabuto and just shove his hand through his back. Like, genuinely, I think that that's something that could happen. But I do think it's equally possible that if Killua picks up on Kabuto's, like, ill intent, then Kabuto might pick up on the fact that Killua picked up on it, because Kabuto's no joke either. Like, whenever Hayate is kind of, like, you know, spying on him and then the dude from the Hidden Sand, Kabuto is the one that senses him. So Kabuto, I think, might know what's going on. So this goes one of two ways, in my opinion. Either Killua recognizes what's going on and he kills this dude, or they both kind of recognize that they know what's going on here and they sort of just, like, go separate ways. So what do you think? How do you think this sort of plays out?
Yeah, I agree with this completely, because Kabuto is very implied to be relative to Kakashi, not just, like, strength-wise, but also just in terms of wits. Like, he outwits Kakashi in that hospital room and stuff like that. So I feel like he would definitely sense that Killua has sensed that he is a fraud in the exam. And I feel like he would have his guard up, because obviously he would know Killua is an assassin. Like, he would obviously know that he's a spy who's been going through nations just gathering information and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I feel like he wouldn't let his guard down. I feel like the more likely scenario is they just go their separate ways.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. Because, I mean, I don't want to sleep on Kabuto. I do think, like, if Kabuto were... Because, again, Killua has a way of being able to sort of, like, sense how strong somebody is just off rip, like, from their aura. And so, you know, obviously, equalizing power systems, he would be able to sense that from their chakra, I think. And so he would know that Kabuto is not to be trifled with, and he would just have his guard up the whole time, and maybe, like, let him know subtly, like, dude, you come this way, we gonna have some problems. So I do think that, like, this leads to less manipulation of Naruto from Kabuto's side, which probably leads to, like, less intel gathering, which, I mean, would lead to more things down the line that we're not going to talk about in this video. But ultimately, I think Kabuto sort of leaves the picture a little bit earlier, and so I don't think he would even be involved in this next matchup that we're going to get into.
Which, by the way, just, like, really quickly, while you were talking, I thought of this. He would legit just the first time he sees Kabuto in that first meeting room where all the examineers are, he would see this guy who's like Jonin level and above.
Yeah.
And he would just look at him and think, like, what is this guy doing here?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I could see him just going up to the management of the exam and just saying, like, guys, what's up with this? So, like, what if Kabuto just gets expelled?
Yeah, oh god, he's not even able to take it, and then, like, he gets caught because why? I do think, like, if he doesn't go to the superiors, he may just, like, go to Gon and Sakura and be like, because, again, Sakura, useless as she may be, is still on this team. But I think he may, like, go to the Gon and Sakura and be like, listen, this guy over here, like, he's way stronger than anybody else here, so, like, I don't know what his deal is, but we need to stay away from him. So, like, whenever Kabuto sort of comes and approaches them to, like, help them out or whatever, they may already have, you know, their antennas up. Like, all right, no, thank you. Keep it moving, you know?
Yeah. So, I think, yeah, we've spent long enough on this. So, the next thing that's gonna be happening is they're gonna be heading to the tower, and one of two things can happen. Either they head there way earlier because Killua recovers way earlier and feels way better than Sasuke. So they could just go there, like, I don't know, like days earlier and then just complete the exam. Or they could just wait till the last second, which I don't know why they would, and if they do that, then they're gonna be faced with the guy that can make clones and stuff like that. But they just legit use Gyo, see through the clones, find the real bodies, and then just murk them. Like,
yeah.
I don't really know what else to say.
No, that's perfect. We don't need to spend any more time on this. There's no reason for them not to be able to see through the illusion because of their ability to, like, basically spawn a Byakugan / Sharingan merged eyeball in their face with Gyo. So, like, yeah, there's no reason for us to believe that they would have any issue with these guys.
But next up, they're gonna get to the preliminary matches. And firstly, we have Killua versus Yoroi, like the guy that can absorb chakra. That rando who Sasuke defeated without chakra. So, I mean, Killua, who just feels way better and adapts way better to the curse mark, could probably use his ability still without even having it sealed.
Well, and honestly, even if Kakashi comes to him, like, because we're assuming, obviously, like, they're in the same sort of world, right? Like, he's Kakashi has been their sensei. If he comes to him, he's like, hey man, do not use that curse mark or you're gonna get kicked out. I don't think he would even need to use enough of his chakra / nen in order to take this guy down. Like, he wouldn't need to use enough of it for the curse mark to be activated, because we know it, like, responds to Sasuke's chakra, right? Which is why he couldn't use the Sharingan. So I think, like, if you look at it that way, he could just, like, beat him up with his physicals. Because, like, Yoroi he's kind of buns, bro. Like, he's not fast, he's not strong. Like, he's literally got one cool ability, and it wasn't enough to deal with a Sasuke who, again, couldn't use chakra. So, yeah, he just gets folded.
Yeah, honestly, I could even see a scenario where Neji and the others just spread the word that Killua ripped a guy's head off.
Yeah.
And Yoroi just looks at him and he's like, I'm not fighting. I forfeit. I quit. Get me out of here.
Dude, well, because honestly, like, Killua also has shown the ability to kind of fear hacks people as well. So I think, like, if he gives him that, like, fear hacks look, and this dude knows that he straight up, like, murdered 4 people in the previous round, he'd be like, you know what, Lord Orochimaru,
he might just pass out from fear.
Yeah, 100%.
So next up is going to be Gon versus Kiba. And this one is actually kind of interesting because they both have extremely sensitive noses and they're both sort of beast-like. Like, Gon lives in the wild for a large portion of his life and stuff like that, but, like, I don't really know what else to say really about this. Like, Gon just kind of probably charges a Jijanken and that's kind of the end of the fight.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, like, Kiba, the way I see it going, they're both sort of, like, quote-unquote taijutsu specialists. They're both, like, close-range specialists. But I don't think that Kiba's, like, taijutsu is going to be able to hang with somebody like Gon, especially if he can fully charge up his attack. So, well, I could see a scenario in which, like, they engage in, like, a close combat kind of bout, and Gon just, like, beats him up immediately because he should have a significant speed advantage. But even if Kiba's able to, like, do the Fang over Fang, if that gives Gon time to, like, charge up his attack and then just, like, unleash the most powerful punch he can, I think he just, like, folds both Akamaru and Kiba simultaneously with that punch. So there's really not a lot to talk about here. I do think it's interesting if Kiba, like, takes those you know, chakra pills, because it can amp him. But I don't know if it would be enough to really make a difference here, because I mean, Naruto at this point, without using the Nine Tails chakra, does kind of suck. Like, he's not super strong. And he was able to beat him. Again, it was weird how he beat him, but, like, he was able to contend with him in close range. So if he could, I don't see a reason why Gon couldn't.
Yeah, plus Naruto was just off of the clone battle where he just literally used up every single ounce of chakra he had.
Yeah.
So he was tired throughout that whole fight too. And another thing to keep in mind is, in Hunter x Hunter, there's an ability called Ko, which basically allows a person to just concentrate their aura into a certain part of their body. And this has no charge-up time. Like, we straight up see Gon and Killua training to make it so it has no charge-up time. It's not a Jijanken, it's not going to be nearly as powerful, but it's still going to be an amped-up punch, which is basically like... It's going to be like a mini Rasengan almost, at that point. And Gon just one punch to Killua at the start of the fight while they're just exchanging blows, that's kind of all that it's gonna take to really put Kiba down.
Oh yeah, totally agree. In terms of the final round, I mean, we've got some really, really cool matchups. We've got Gon versus Neji, which goes crazy. And then we also have Gaara versus Killua. Which one do you want to talk about first, bro? Because, like, they're both insane.
Yeah, we can go in chronological order and start with Gon versus Neji.
So, Gon should have the superior speed here, but at the end of the day, like, he's a close-range fighter, and while Gon is incredibly skilled as a close-range fighter, he's not more skilled than Neji is. Like, Neji's Gentle Fist, I think, is just a really, really bad thing for him to face, especially because, like, whenever he's facing Hisoka, you know, he like, rips that panel up off the ground and, like, smashes it, like, uses a distraction. That's not working against Neji. He can see through it. You know, like, any of his crafty tactics that he uses in battle, like, none of it's gonna work. So at the end of the day, he's going to have to face Neji in a close quarters fight. And again, you know, we're equalizing the power systems here, so Gon has a chakra network in this, and it's just getting shut down. Like, there's just nothing to do. He doesn't have a tailed beast inside of him to, you know, awaken his chakra again. Like, there's just no way around it. I think even if we say that he's a good amount faster than Neji is Byakugan Precog, which the Byakugan does offer Precog. I know some people say it doesn't. It definitely does. The Byakugan Precog and Perception, it just should be enough for Neji to sort of, like, deal with whatever speed gap there is, and literally one touch from him will be enough to shut down Gon. And also, I don't think that Neji is going to take Gon as lightly as he took Naruto. Like, Neji's going into this fight, you know, dead serious. He's not going to be like, oh, you're a failure, you suck. Because, like, Gon's not going to be the dude he's not going to be the dude that failed the entrance exam, you know, 3 times. Like, he's not going to be some, like, loser, right? He's going to be, like, considered a prodigy.
Yeah, Gon's going to be the guy who no-diffed his match in the prelims, and who has a teammate who ripped a guy's head off. So
yeah.
Neji's gonna look at this and he's gonna be serious for sure.
100%. So yeah, I think honestly, like, Neji should win this with relatively low difficulty. I want to give Gon the benefit of the doubt and, like, you know, boost it up to maybe mid-diff because of his superior stats, but stats aren't gonna mean nothing unless it's, like, a massive gap, because again, they're both close-range fighters and Neji's just far more skilled. So yeah, I think he goes out in the first round, but, you know, puts up a valiant effort.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. The only win condition Gon really has is charging into Jonken, which Neji is just not gonna let that slide. He's gonna run up to him and start blocking chakra points.
Yeah, I totally agree. How do you feel about, because I think honestly, like, that one would be an interesting one to watch, but I think the one that would be more interesting in terms of an actual combat matchup perspective is definitely Killua versus Gaara, and we had some pretty interesting thoughts on that before we started recording. What are your initial thoughts on that?
Okay, so Killua is basically Sasuke at this point, but with a few key differences. So firstly, he's definitely weaker. He's not just punching through Gaara's sand armor. However, on the other hand, he's faster in base, and he has pretty much ranged Chidori. Like, they're not as strong, but they're just lightning bolts that he can just fire at will. And Gaara's sand is not faster than Sasuke's Chidori. Like, Killua literally just transmutes his Nen into lightning, which it moves at lightning speed. So he's just gonna be bypassing the passive sand that defends Gaara. And the sand armor is an issue. I think that Killua definitely can't just punch through it. Maybe he could with a co-enhanced punch, maybe, but without that I don't think he has a chance of punching through it. But then what happens is he just starts firing lightning bolts at Gaara, and then just superheating the sand on his body and actually just burning his skin.
Yeah.
Like, it's actually kind of disgusting, but, like, that's honestly what I see happening.
Yeah, well, and honestly, Killua's not going to be, you know, shy to do that. Like, he will straight up be like, okay, so you want to wear your sand on you. How about we turn that sand into superheated glass? So there's honestly, it would be a detriment to Gaara. But I think, like, with Killua just, like, firing lightning bolt after lightning bolt at Gaara, and I mean, it's going through his initial defense. Like the automatic defense is getting blasted through by any of his lightning attacks, and honestly probably blitzed by his lightning attacks because I don't think it's fast enough to react to it.
Yeah.
But once it hits the sand armor, again, it's either gonna like knock it off of him or it's gonna superheat it, and then Gaara's gonna have to drop that defense eventually. So then it just becomes a matter of like, if he goes into the dome, does Killua have a way to like get through it? And if not, would he just like superheat the dome? Like what is he, you know, it would get weird if he goes into that dome defense. But honestly, I think you can make an argument that Killua is just so much faster than both, you know, the Sasuke that fought Gaara and Gaara himself, that he might just be able to like juggle him and blitz him with Godspeed, just like overwhelming him with lightning attacks until Gaara eventually gives.
Yeah. I think that the main thing with the dome is, like, Sasuke was kind of an idiot in that fight. He just stood there and let the dome surround Gaara slowly. So, Killua is not that kind of guy. He's not that generous with his fights. So, I think he would probably just kick Gaara out of the dome as soon as it starts forming.
Yeah.
He wouldn't even allow it to fully form. But then, another thing that I want to add is Killua is definitely the type of guy to just spam the same attack into the same area multiple times to make a difference, because we straight up see that happen against this one rhino ant, and he just straight up tries to stab it in the heart, sees that the shell is too hard to be stabbed through, and then he just spams the same attack into the same spot multiple times, and he straight up does what we just spoke he would do to Gaara. He straight up heats up the shell, and then just breaks through it, because he weakens it with the heat from the lightning, and then he just breaks through it, and then just kills the ant. So that's kind of what would happen here. And then another thing that I would mention is Killua will definitely know that Gaara is a complete psychopath. Like, word has spread at this point. He's literally killed people right before his fight. So Killua is not gonna have any qualms with killing this guy, probably. Like, if worst comes to worst, he could probably just stab him through the heart or through the head.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, obviously, like, I think the Jonin would hop in before that. But like, you could argue, because of the fact that Killua is like lightning speed, some of the Jonin may not be able to keep up. Now, I would argue they probably could. I mean, you can scale like a Kid Kakashi to lightning timer levels or above.
Yeah.
And then he's like reacting to the Water Fang bullet that's like stated to be light speed. So like there are a lot of implications that these Jonin level characters are like faster than lightning for sure. But like, you could also, if you want to take like lower end interpretations, maybe only Kakashi with the Chidori or with the Raikiri is lightning speed. And if that's the case, then like they're not stopping him from killing Gaara.
And then one more thing that I would like to add for Godspeed. If Killua whips it out, which he might, it legit made a Royal Guard look like it was frozen.
Yeah.
And the Royal Guards are absolutely insane in all stats. They're faster than everybody else in the verse, aside from Netero and the King, and Adult Gon too, but Adult Gon doesn't really count for anything here. So, the Royal Guards are absolutely insane. They scale above characters like Chrollo, like Silva, Zeno, like all the Zoldycks, which do have very high scaling of their own. And Killua just straight up makes that guy look like he's frozen. He is doing Gaara dirty. He is just straight up decimating him before his synapses in his mind can even fire anything. Like, the sand is not doing anything.
Yeah, like, imagine the scene where Lee is, like, you know, blitzing around him, like, you know, kind of kicking the sand and everything. Now, scale his speed up multiple times, and then you have Godspeed Killua, who would be able to just, like, absolutely juggle him with no problem. So, I mean, I feel like we've kind of been pretty generous until now for Gaara, but at the end of the day, like, that speed advantage is huge, and he wouldn't have the AP, in my opinion, to put him down with one shot, but, like, you know, a death of 1,000 cuts is real, and Killua does have super high stamina overall, so I don't see a reason why, even without Godspeed, he shouldn't be able to just, like, juggle him and, you know, knock the armor off and, you know, just force him into a war of attrition, which I do think that Killua would win. From there, I mean, we were kind of talking about before the video, like in the original timeline, obviously that's where the Chunin exams end, because Gaara goes into his shell, and they begin, like, you know, the attack on Konoha. So do you want to sort of jump into that and kind of go over what that would look like?
So here, Gaara is out of commission by this point. He's either dead or completely knocked out and burned, so...
Yeah.
Like, Shukaku's not coming out, and then Konoha Crush just sort of goes uninterrupted. Like, Gon and Killua are not stopping Orochimaru versus Hiruzen in any way. So, what's likely going to happen is they just sort of help out against the Sound Chunin, I guess.
Yeah.
Because Killua is definitely breaking free of the Genjutsu that Kabuto places. Gon, maybe, maybe not, but he's gonna get broken out by Killua regardless. So, they just sort of just stay there and just help fight off the Chunin, and that's kind of it. That's how Konoha Crush goes. It's not really affected at all.
What could be interesting is, because Killua and Gon should scale like higher than most Chunin at this point in time, they would actually, I think, be able to make a difference in the amount of time it takes to take down all of the combatants that the Konoha Shinobi are facing. If that's the case, if they can cut down the time even 10 or 15 minutes, then maybe, I mean, I know that they've got the barrier ninjutsu going on with Hiruzen, but maybe you see a scenario in which, like, they beat all of the other shinobi, and then they go to help out Hiruzen, and, you know, there's somebody in the village that might be able to, like, know how to get around this barrier, or they just, like, wait it out, and then as soon as the barrier is dropped, they just, like, kill Orochimaru, like, not Gon and Killua, but
yeah,
like
Orochimaru with no arms.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, Orochimaru with no arms.
Imagine Guy with the 6th or 7th gate and Kakashi jumping like a super tired out Orochimaru.
Yep,
like that's actually kind of rip for Orochimaru.
No, I totally agree. So, like, and Kabuto is there, obviously, but, like, a lot of people scale Kabuto to Kakashi. I think he scales a little bit below him, in my opinion. I think if they, like, had a serious fight, Kakashi should win. But, like, they're in the same tier of power, I would say. So if you see a scenario in which, like, Kakashi faces Kabuto, I think Kakashi wins in a pretty tough battle, but I think he wins. And if Hiruzen's dead too, Kakashi's, like, you know, dead serious. He's not playing around. He doesn't have a mental nerf. You know, he's ready to go. Guy is just juggling this version of Orochimaru that has no arms. You know, it literally took the level 2 curse mark state for the Sound 4 to take down 2 exhausted Jonin that were coming back from a mission. So, like, you have the rest of the Jonin, like, Ibiki's coming in there, you know, not Hayate, but the other dude, I can't remember his name, but, like, all these other Jonin are, like, hopping in. Eventually, like, Jiraiya arrives to the village. Like, I think Konoha Crush just, like, gets stopped, and I think Orochimaru gets killed. Now, I do think, you know, because of the barrier, like, we can't really say that they would have a way to counter the barrier. Maybe, like, Hiruzen still dies, but at the end of the day, like, they're not getting away. So, like, the whole story kind of changes if Gon and Killua are there, in my opinion. But it's kind of crazy to think about.
I could even see a change where Killua just, like, as soon as Kankuro and Temari try to get Gaara out, I could see Killua potentially thinking, like, okay, that guy's pretty dangerous, let's prevent this. And then just blitzing them and knocking them out real quick before going to help everyone deal with the Chunin. So I could even see that being the case, like Gaara never transforms regardless, and then they're just prisoners of the Leaf Village now as well. Orochimaru is dead, the Sound 4 are prisoners probably.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like, this butterfly effect goes hard in this.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that changes the whole rest of the story. But if you guys want to hear about what we think about, you know, the other parts of the story, I think we're going to be doing a pretty cool series with this, because I think Gon and Killua in the place of Naruto and Sasuke can have some pretty cool implications at different points throughout the story. So definitely stay tuned for that. But that does it for this video. So if you guys enjoyed, make sure to like, and, you know, if you're kind enough, hit that subscribe button, unless you don't like fun. If you don't like Hunter x Hunter and you don't like Naruto, then don't subscribe. But if you like those, make sure that you do. And also, big thank you to Satori for coming onto the channel. I appreciate you, man. If you guys are not subbed to Satori, make sure to go sub to him as well. We've got all kinds of cool stuff planned for the future. And as a little preview for next week, I have Anbu Kakashi. How strong is he? Coming up. So That one's going to be an in-depth analysis of Anbu Kakashi's strength that I'm really excited to share with you guys, because I think I might bring some information to you guys that you weren't privy to before. But thank you guys so much for watching all the way to the end. Until next time, have an awesome day.